I don't pay it.
Okay, good morning. Wednesday, February 6th, Parshas Mishpatim. Mishpatim deals with the laws between man and his neighbor. All kinds of laws of damages. If you hurt somebody by mistake, even if your property hurts somebody, there's all kinds of laws. There's also another mitzvah in this week's parsha, which is called Hashavas Aveda, returning a lost article. Now, I don't know who. Somebody in this shul told me a fascinating story. Maybe it was even you guys, that they asked. There was a woman. It may have happened like recently. There was a woman that came from a religious home, and then she decided not to be frum anymore, not to be religious, and a friend of hers told her, "Look, you got to come back. Come with me to my rabbi. Come to shul the Shabbos and listen to my rabbi. He's such a wonderful rabbi." So they come in. It happened to have been this week's parsha, Mishpatim, and the rabbi was talking about the laws of returning an article. He says if you find something, you have to return it if it doesn't belong to you. And she was not at all impressed with this rabbi, and he was going into a little of the details of this law, which I will in a little while. And she came out of there. She says, "This is what your frumkeit is. This is I don't need this." And she basically left the Jewish religion completely. And she went to a church, and she became very friendly with the priest there or whatever. And this went on for a number of years. And one day, they were walking together, and there was a wallet on the floor. So he picks up the wallet, and there's like $1,000 cash in it, and some credit cards and everything. And he takes the money and he pockets it, and then.
Who, the priest?
The priest, yeah. And then the wallet or something, I don't know what he did. Maybe he left it on the street, or maybe he gave it to a cop. I found this, but he figured the cash, he'll get away with it. She looked at him, she goes, "What are you doing?" So he goes, "Well, this is, maybe there wasn't a name in there. I don't know the exact story, but bottom line, he took the money," and she looked at him, she goes, "What kind of a person are you? I mean, this isn't yours. Maybe it belongs to the storekeeper right in front over here. Something. Do some diligence." And he didn't. And then she remembered how this rabbi emphasized how important this returning a lost article, how Jews, to them, everything is precious, and you don't allow something like that to happen. And that's how she came back to becoming frum because of this mitzvah. Anyway, this week's mitzvah is in this week's parsha. It says, if you see your enemies, interesting, you see your enemies, ox or donkey wandering, you recognize that it's your enemy's property, you have to return it to him. So actually this mitzvah is repeated a second time in the Torah. And I'm probably not going to find it right away, but I know where it is in the Gemara. It says later on in Deuteronomy, in Devarim, where the Torah is repeated, a lot of the mitzvahs are repeated, especially the laws of between man and his fellow man, and torts. And over there it says that it's same thing, that if you find something, you have to return it, and so you shall do to his lachamoro, to his donkey, v'chein sasel loso, and to his clothing. You find a jacket, it belongs to somebody, you have to return it. V'chein tasel l'chol avedas achicha, to all, anything that is lost, asher tovat mimenu, that he lost, you have to return it.
It said achicha?
Over there it says achicha. Okay, we're not going to get into that, but your brother means a fellow Jew. Whether he's your friend or not, he's still your brother. So this is one of the 613 mitzvahs. You find something, you return it. Now, there is a concept of, there is a time when you don't have to return something. And there's a whole tractate on in Shas. It's the ones that usually most people who first start learning, they either start with the beginning Masechta Brachas, the tractate of Brachas, or they start with this one. And it talks about which items that you find do you have to return and which ones don't you have to return. And the most classic case of an item that you find that you don't have to return is where the owner has given up hope. So, for example, if you're walking in China and you find an apple in a paper bag that's from Pathmark, so you know this apple came from America, you know the owner has given up hope. You find a receipt that it was bought 2 months before that. So you know the owner from America has given up hope. I'm giving you a very strange but a very definite case where you know an owner has given up hope. If you find a quarter in the casinos on the floor, you know the owner has given up hope, because there's no way that he can figure out that he's going to come back to this casino and find his quarter on the floor. So Rashi says that the concept of why you're allowed to keep something that somebody has given up hope, what's the theory behind it?
L'ityayesh.
Yeah, l'ityayesh. But why, if somebody has given up hope, does it? Because Rashi says the concept is then it's not yours anymore. Then it's like you said before. What was the word you said before?
L'ityayesh.
Hefker.
Hefker.
Hefker means it's public property now.
Domain.
It's public
But
domain.
how can you assume someone's given up hope?
I just explained to you that if you told me that 27 years ago you lost a number 2 pencil. Okay, we'll talk about it.
Okay.
Well, if you lost a pencil on Market Street in Philadelphia 27 years ago,
I found it.
You've given up hope of finding it.
Yeah, it's
Okay?
true. Okay, it's true. But
All right?
but you might be able to twist. I'm just saying, someone might be able to twist
So
that idea to take advantage of it,
We'll talk about it.
not unfairly.
We'll talk about it.
Okay.
We're talking about the mitzvah. Good morning, Alan. We're talking about the mitzvah of returning a lost object. And I said the classic case where you don't have to return a lost object is where the owners have given up hope of ever finding it.
But how do you differentiate that?
So we'll
That's
talk about it.
interesting.
We'll talk about it. I always say 90% of your questions will be answered by the time I'm finished.
Okay, we'll start
I
with that.
deliberately say these things to provoke these questions in your mind, and then I talk about them. Now, there's a very interesting story, which is a true story. There's actually 2 stories I'm going to tell you about pertaining to this. There was a man in the 50s or 60s. This story is brought down in Sforim, where he walked into somebody's house. This man was a Holocaust survivor, and walks into somebody's house, and he looks at the bookshelf, and he recognizes his books, his Sforim, that belonged to him. He was living, let's say, in Poland before the war. The Nazis came in, took him to Auschwitz or something. He survived, comes to America, goes into it's really happened, goes into somebody's house, and he recognizes his Sforim. Not only does he recognize it, he shows him. He tells the guy, look, my name is in front. It says right there, Tuvia Stern. It says right there. He tells the guy, this belongs to me. This belongs to me. The guy says, wait a second. I paid for this, good money. I bought it. I was 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, whenever, or in the 40s, end of the 40s, I was in Poland, and this Gentile comes up to me and says, "Are you a Jew?" Yes, I have some books to sell you. I paid him $1,000.
No address or nothing. What
do you mean?
No address on the book?
Yeah, the address maybe in the book was an address in Germany, which house is already burned down. Nothing exists over there.
So it was completely...
So he and I paid the man $1,000 for it.
That's a good question.
So it's a very good question, and we struggle with this question. And there's Ari.
At least he has half of the...
Good morning, Ari. Okay, so you can really catch. We're talking about returning a lost object, and if the owners have given up hope, then you're allowed to keep it. And I'm telling a story. Have you heard what I said?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. We're telling a story about somebody walked into somebody's house, and he recognizes his books that he owned before the war. Before the Nazis threw him out of his house, he recognizes his books on his friend's shelf in Brooklyn, New York. And he said, "Those belong to me." And the guy says, "I bought them from a Gentile in Poland 20 years ago. Does he have to return it?" Now, there is a concept that is called Zuto Shel Yam, the torrents of the ocean. Torrent, which is
Excuse me, isn't there something in there that you have to buy it back from the person if you really want it? If you really want it,
Yeah, like a very tumultuous
then
thing.
you have to buy it back?
well, if you really want it, you're supposed to pay them.
Unstoppable.
Well, the question is, do you have to pay him, or can you get it for free?
Right. But I'm saying
So that's what we're talking about.
But isn't there something that says that you do have to pay them?
By saying you do have to pay means it doesn't belong to you anymore. That if you want it, you got to pay.
Right.
But he's saying they belong to me because here's my name is in the books.
I once
owned them.
I once owned it.
There's no question that I once owned it. And the guy says, "Yeah, I believe you once owned it. I recognize your name. I know who you are, and I know that you lived in that town. But I paid for it, and more than that,
He probably didn't have.
there's a Gemara." He tells him there's a Gemara that says that if that the Torah says that you have to return something to somebody, any lost article that is lost from him. So the Gemara learns out from this, that you're only supposed to return something of an article that's lost to him, but something that's lost to everybody, like the case of Zuto Shel Yam, if there's an article on the beach, and a wave comes and takes it into the ocean, that's lost from everybody, not just from the owner. Nobody has it anymore. So if by some luck on the other side of the ocean the wave brings it back out, the person who finds that is allowed to keep it, because this is not an article that was lost from the owner, this is an article that was lost from everybody. So he's saying to this fellow in Brooklyn, and he's saying these books were lost from everybody. The Nazis came in, and they took it, and nobody had it anymore. It was lost from the whole world, and therefore they're rightfully mine. Now, we have to understand what is the concept of if something is lost from everybody, that it becomes a free-for-all. So there's actually a debate about it between the Rambam and the Rosh. Why this is allowed? Good morning. Why this is allowed? The Rambam says that because of Yush, because the owner, once the wave came in and took it out into the ocean, the owner himself said, "That's lost. I'll never see that again." So he has in effect given up hope on it, and he has basically, without verbalizing, has said, this is now a free-for-all. So that's the Rambam's reason. The Rosh says no. The Rosh says that it makes no difference what the person thinks. let's assume this guy is a very, I'm not going to use the word stubborn, but he says, no, I'm going to jump into this ocean, I'm going to hire 10 scuba divers, and we're going to go in afterwards, and we're going to find this thing. Makes no difference. God made it hefker. The Torah says that if something like this happens, if it gets swept up by a torrent, or for example, another case the Gemara gives is like if you're eating at Bubby's, let's say, you know I have to bring in Bubby's every single time. You're eating at Bubby's, that's a very cute thing, right? You're eating at Bubby, and you're about to have your pizza, and a lion comes in, which doesn't happen that often, does it? Occasionally happens, but a lion comes in and
there was one last night.
Last night it happened, yes, and that's not a lion. You're not lying, are you? No. Okay. All right. Anyway, so
what was a pussycat?
Yeah, we're on tape. A lion comes in and grabs the pizza and runs out with dangling from his mouth that pizza. Okay, am I, as a third person, allowed to come and grab that pizza out of his mouth and keep it, or does he have to return it to you? So the Gemara says clearly, no, that once the lion takes it and it's in his mouth, it's lost from the whole world. Forget it. It's now public domain. If you're brave enough to grab it out of the lion, it's yours. So the Rosh says that it makes no difference whether, let's say you're Siegfried or Roy, and you can attack this lion and you can get it. Makes no difference. The Torah made this, anything that goes into this category, the Torah made this a public property and you can take it. Now, let's go back to the case of the books. When the Nazis came in, and this is all brought down in a sefer, when the Nazis came in and they took those books, is this the case of like the lion grabbing something? Or is it the case where the person gave up hope? In other words, is it an automatic? According to the Rambam, it says that the person has to give up hope. We know for sure there that the person has given up hope. I mean, he's running to save his life from the Nazis. You know, he's not going to say, "Oh, wait a second, I got to go back and get my Kitzur Shulchan Aruch." You know, so according to the Rambam, for sure, he has given up hope, and this became public property. And according to the Rosh, who says that the Torah makes it hefker, if it's such a case where it's impossible to retrieve it, so according to him also, these books are already public property. Now, it's not so simple. The answer, some say very, very strongly, no, that by Hebrew books, nobody ever gives up hope. Why? Because when a thief breaks into your house and he steals something, if he steals a watch, what's he going to do with the watch? He's going to try to sell it. Where is he going to sell it? Anywhere in the world. If he steals your car, he's going to go for a joyride. He may not do it. What's he going to do with Jewish books?
Sell them to another Jew.
He knows the only market is a Jew. So a Jew never gives up hope. He always figures. There's a story that happened a few weeks ago, that exactly this story. Somebody's tefillin was stolen, and somebody tried to took it to another Jew, and it eventually winds up in another Jew's hands. And that's why by Sforim, by Hebrew books, it would make a difference whether it's the Rambam that the person gives up hope, because according to the Rambam's view, a person never gives up hope on Jewish books.
Are you allowed to buy a store and merchandise?
Okay, 1 second. Let me just finish. Yeah. And according to the Rosh, where it's such a case where the Torah basically says that all hope is lost. Now, having said that, there are people that say that in any other case, by books you don't give up hope, because it always comes back. He says, but the case by the Nazis, it was different, because they had a purpose to eradicate all Jews, and they were not in it for the money. They just wanted to obliterate anything having to do with Yiddishkeit and Judaism. So over there, nobody figured those books will eventually, the Nazis are eventually going to go fence it and go to some other Jew. That over there they were certainly going to destroy this or burn it, as we know they did, or use it for mundane things. We go to the museum, we see what they've done with Torah scrolls and everything. So in that case, according to everybody,
Hefker.
it's hefker, it's public property, and you could keep it. Having said all this, and I'm just fast forwarding because we have many we should start. Having said all this, I said this many times. The Ramah brings this down. The Ramah is the commentary on the Shulchan Aruch, brings it down, that even though according to halacha maybe this is not considered a lost item that you have to return, but there's another precept in the Torah that tells you that you should return it, because we have a general thing, it's called V'sisa Yosher V'atov. You should do the right thing, and the right thing is that you see these books, it belongs to this fellow,
And he wants them.
and he wants them, and they're his.
Can he get paid for the money that he paid?
Now, by the same token, if this guy is going to
The
do,
right thing on the other man's part.
that's right.
Right.
Just like it's the right thing for him to give it back, regardless whether he gets paid for it or not. The person, if he can, should pay him back at least what he paid for it. Not to make a profit, but he should get it.
That was the question.
Okay.
As good as the past.
Right.
Very good.
Have a good day.